Yankee Doodle went to town riding on this. Whenever you used to sing Yankee Doodle, hello there, I'm the delicious Nicolicious from the Bro podcast.
Yeah, Rob Dog here. What's going on?
Whenever you were a child and you used to sing Yankee Doodle, did you always envision Yankee Doodle as Abraham Lincoln? I did.
I don't think I did.
I did.
Yeah.
And I don't know why he put a feather in his hat and called it macaroni. That's pretty stupid in my opinion.
Maybe there was something wrong with him.
I was completely fine. No problems all day. I didn't have any issues. Then Rob gets here. He walks to the door. He's like, my sinuses, dude. And then
dude, it's so bad.
All of a sudden, my nose is like, just locks up.
Yeah.
Done. So we're going to sound like a couple fucking dumbasses for the entire episode. We got the sniffles and the nose locks.
Yeah. We're sorry.
We're still scissoring after the show. It doesn't matter. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Brohio podcast. We're going to be talking about some different conspiracies linked to the first president of the United States of America, George Lincoln, and hopefully that some of the... I read this wrong. The 16th president. His name's Abraham Lincoln.
Ah, okay.
I got this written down wrong. Sometimes it's hard to read my crayon stuff. Dude, I know I have a huge infatuation with Abraham Lincoln and the way that he died and just the lore surrounding his death. It's kind of morbid. I love to get on Google Maps and go look at the theater where he died, and I love to beat off the pictures of his wife because she's really ugly, and it's like a challenge, you know, and it's more like a challenge thing.
It doesn't really surprise me because he wasn't really that good looking of a guy.
But there's this ad that keeps on popping up on all my web pages. It says, what would presidents look like if they lived today? And then it's always Abraham Lincoln. I said, man, he's a pretty suave-looking dude in these reconstruction things. But, yeah, he was he was uglier.
I feel like he'd look like a hipster nowadays.
If my father was explaining it, he would say, it looks like he fell down the ugly tree and hit every branch on the fucking way down.
Yeah.
Yeah, ugly fucking guy. Honest Abe, though, that's what he was, you know, old Honest Abe. We would like to say hello to our newest patron subscriber, starting off with Christian Simpson. Christian, Sister Christian, thank you so much for your Patreon pledge.
Seth Howell, thank you very much.
Sandy Murray. I got a lot of that in my vagina. Sand in my vagina.
Okay.
Yeah.
This name I'm probably going to get very wrong.
No, just pronounce it like it looks.
Is it Johannes Schrader?
I'm going to say Johannes.
Or Johannes.
But it's probably Johannes. Johannes Hater. Thanks so much for your Patreon pledge. Well, we have a Zoom live show this weekend, November 21st. I think it starts at like 5:30 Eastern Standard Time.
Okay.
What the plan is, Rob's doing a topic. I'll give you about 30 minutes. Then I'm going to do a topic. I'm going to give you about 30 minutes. We don't know what the other one's picking.
Yep.
We don't know what we're doing. But then I ordered a death nut. One of us is going to have to eat. And it's called a Little Nitro. And apparently these things are sold out all over the fucking world because there was a premium price paid for one fucking nut and one gummy bear.
Yeah. Isn't a death nut what David Carradine did?
Yeah, it was. I heard Chris Cornell went out the same way, but I'm not 100% sure. And if those of you unfamiliar with that, they were choking themselves while they were beating their meat. Oh, man. We should try that sometime. But the first time, it's important to have a spotter, so
right.
I'll turn my back to you so it doesn't feel awkward, and it's not like, you know, it's kind of a weird thing.
I don't think it just is like effective if you're sitting by yourself and like just choking yourself with your hand, like your left hand. Because everybody knows everybody beats off with their right hand, but
yeah, not everybody.
Then if you beat off with your left hand, just don't listen to us ever again. You're worse than puffy nippled people.
I used to really be a pornographer aficionado when I was younger. Not so much anymore, but
right.
I was always jealous of the guys that didn't have, like on the pornos, they didn't beat it. They didn't like jerk it up and down. They like twisted it. Like twist the top off.
Right.
And they had like fucking 12 inches of daylight between their fist and the bottom of their wiener.
Or if they can use both hands.
Yeah.
Those guys are I'm really jealous of those
Good
dudes.
for you, fellas. If you can, I used to beat off with two hands, but I would just put my hands on top of each other and make like a teepee with both my fingers.
Yeah.
And then I cross it, make like a pound sign with my fingers, and I put my wiener inside the middle of the pound sign.
I was gonna say I wouldn't be able to use two hands. I'd have a pinky in my asshole if I was using two hands.
I'm too fat. I can't reach my butt anymore. I was trying to talk to my dad the other day, and I'm like, Dad, because we're both like shaped like fucking bowling balls. And I said, how do you wipe?
Eggs.
I said, how do you wipe your butt? And he's like, I knew this day would come. Fucking shaped like him. I got short, stumpy arms, and we don't bend. There's no flexibility in this family at all.
Right.
He said, you got to install a handicap rail in your bathroom. You got to hold on to it for dear life. You got to hold on to it and then lean back real hard. I said, all right, that's what we're going to do. Apparently, you can't mount one of those to straight drywall because it comes right off.
Right, yeah.
You got to find a stud. And I'm not talking about us kind of studs either. I have a newspaper article to share with you wonderful people this week.
Cool.
His wife blows thousands on vet bills after her husband blames his farts on the dog.
Oh, man, poor pup.
A wife has revealed how she blew thousands on vet bills after her husband blamed his farts on the dog. The pregnant woman said her dog Jerry.
Jerry.
What a cool name for a dog.
You know what? Anybody that names their pets human names, I think it's the best thing ever.
Everyone really likes Bruce. My dog,
yeah,
a stupid dog, but they're like, his real name's Bruce? Like, yeah, his name's Bruce.
It's always got to be the old time names that nobody names their pets, or nobody names humans anymore, like fucking like Dolores or
Ralph.
Yeah, Ralph Henry. Or Larry.
Yeah. The pregnant woman said her dog Jerry underwent expensive tests after she became concerned about his unbelievable and stinky gas. The ordeal started a month ago, and the wife was left horrified by a, quote, really disgusting smell during dinner, which her husband claimed was the dog. But after weeks of panicking and mounting vet bills, the husband finally came clean. That's so stupid.
Oops.
Angry, the wife kicked her husband out of their home, and she said he was even shunned by the family over the low blow. Sharing her story on Reddit, the wife said it's been a stressful few weeks for the couple. Quote, we have a dog, Jerry. He's an absolute sweetheart, and I love him dearly, she explained. A month ago, my husband, Jerry, and I were eating dinner when suddenly I smelled something really disgusting. My husband instantly made a face, so I knew it wasn't just me. I couldn't stand the smell and left the room. Later in bed, my husband told me the dog farted. Dude, dogs fucking stink when they fart, too.
Yeah, they do.
The smell was unbelievable. It honestly smelled a lot like rotten eggs. I thought it was one-off because the dog does fart, as do we, but it's never been this bad. Over the next week, the smell could come again, and at random times, I lit candles, incense. Nothing worked. The whole time I thought it was a dog, and I said, okay, I'm taking him to the vet. A fart this stinky isn't normal. Through all this, my husband kept silent, but even after the vet recommended a diet change, the horrific smells at home continued. I was losing my mind, and my husband still kept his mouth shut, she said. The vet was extremely confused and ordered a bunch of tests that cost a lot. All the tests showed that the dog was fine. My anxiety started kicking in. What if there's something wrong with him? What if we lose him? The wife said it was only when she reached the breaking point that the truth came out. I had a full-on meltdown about losing Jerry. We're going to lose the dog. And then you have to understand this nonsense has been going on for 5 weeks. My husband confesses that the farts weren't the dog, but were him, the wife said. I lost it. I kicked him out of the house. He went to stay with his friends. To be clear, I don't mind he lied in the moment, but he knew we were going to the vet. The vet was confused. He even went to the vet appointments with me.
Oh, my gosh.
What a fucking asshole. Literally. It takes him a full-on panic attack, a mental breakdown to say the truth. His mother is on my side as well. She called him, in no uncertain terms, an idiot. Justice for Jerry. The wife said they soon reconcile, but she's still too angry over the ordeal. He went to the doctor about his farts and was recommended a diet change as well, she added. Reddit users were shocked by the man's actions, with some demanding justice for Jerry. That was so cruel to the dog, said one. How many times did the vet draw blood for these tests? And man, stressing out your pregnant wife for no reason is just putting your baby at risk. You heard it here first, folks.
That's awesome.
Justice for Jerry. Yeah, dude, when dogs fart, it will gag a fucking maggot. It's disgusting. And they don't, and my dog is getting old enough now, he doesn't even know he's farting anymore.
His insides are just rotting.
He's just sleeping, and it's just like,
yeah.
And I'll just leave the room. It smells so bad. gotta. But if you're feeding them kibbles and bits and shit, that asshole's gonna stink. You gotta put them on a high quality diet. But I've also heard you put them on some high quality shit, and that'll make their butts stink just as worse.
Yeah, dogs' internal organs are all fucking weird.
And I have border collies. They have long hair, and sometimes I have to lift their tails and trim the hair around their buttholes.
Yeah,
and it's fucking.
My
disgusting.
wife has to do the same for me.
Ugh. Knock the dingleberries off.
Yeah. I don't have the tail, but sometimes there's a turd hanging there, so I just pretend like it is.
Oh man,
just pick it up.
Just grab it. It's a little nougat. Yesterday, the cat walked into the living room, and her favorite thing to do is to have her butthole licked by Bruce. I've talked about. She just
kinky little bitch.
She comes in looking for him. Like, it is so blatant and disgusting. It makes you nauseous to watch it all unfold. And then she'll see Bruce, and
she's definitely a millennial.
She'll start flicking her tail, and then she'll start backing the truck up. You can hear, she starts backing it up into Bruce's face, and then Bruce, he starts licking her butthole. I'm just like, that is fucking gross. And then the cat, and that seems like that's the only time she comes in the living room when she's looking to have her asshole licked. And she came into the living room last night, and my wife Stacy, she's like, "Oh, Pumpkin wants her butthole licked." She said that. And then Paisley, my 3-year-old, speaks up. She's like, "Somebody come lick her butthole for me." Like, she knew it needed done, but she wasn't going to be the one to do it. Like, "Someone come lick her butthole for me."
Oh man.
That's what's going on in my house.
Gotta love it, man.
Well, before this episode gets too out of control, I'm going to go upstairs and try and secure some nose spray real quick, if that's okay with you.
Of course.
All right. When I get to that end of life phase where I start to just stink really bad all the time, well,
I think you already are right now.
More so than I am right now. I hope that the people around me have the bravery to tell me that my body is just giving up on me. Because there's been a couple times that I've released gas and I've wholeheartedly believed my body was just turning itself off.
Just crossing over.
Yeah. And like my physical body was just dying and decaying.
Yeah.
Spiritually, I was moving on. But before we start real quick, I watched a movie, Z. Watched the movie Z. It's on Amazon Prime. I had to rent it. It's just called Z. It's about a kid that's got an imaginary friend that makes him do really bad stuff. Creepy fucking movie. So if you guys are looking for good movies to rent, Z. It's on Amazon Prime. It's made by Shudder, which they're like a horror film giddy up, but it's a good fucking weird movie.
Cool.
Check that out. That's anything going on in Rob Dog's world this week?
Not at all. Besides my fucking sinuses. Oh, I did get to go axe throwing for the first time this weekend, so that was pretty sweet.
Oh, I saw one snap and you just slight right on the bullseye. Was that par for the night, or did you do pretty well?
No, I killed it.
Really?
Yeah.
They make you wear masks?
Not while we were throwing.
Really?
Going in, we did, but when we were actually in there, we didn't have to. But yeah, I was killing it, man. 4s and bullseyes all night.
That's pretty sweet. I've never gone before.
It's a lot of fun.
I'd love to.
Yeah, the only thing that sucks is that the people that run, there will be a guy that actually works there that pretty much stays with you the entire time, and they don't treat it as like a game. That's like, you'll do one, everybody will go through one time, and you'll try to get to 21. Whoever gets 21 first wins. And then the next round, they'll do a balloon, and you got to hit the balloon. And then the next round, it's not just like, hey, here's your thing, fucking throw it, just have fun. Just have fun, yeah.
Okay.
You're kind of chaperoned the entire time, but it was a good time.
I will say real quick for our live show that's coming up in December, as of yesterday, the Warp Wing Brewery, where we're having it at, announced on the Dayton Daily News that they're suspending operations
for 2 weeks. That's awful close to when we're going to have our live show. So
yeah, but it's not there. That still leaves us quite a few days to spare there. So we're playing it by ear. I think the plan is we still want to do it.
Yep.
We're going to wait more so for our governor on Thursday to say what he's going to, the fate of the restaurant industry, of what's going to happen. So I think if we can still do it, we're going to do it. But if it's looking murky, we're just going to shoot the refunds back and just call it what it is.
Yep.
COVID got one, dude.
Yep.
Trying our god.
We're trying.
We're trying our goddest damnedest. But they said their calendar's wide open, so we theoretically, if we're okay, we would check and we could reschedule it and possibly refund the people that can't make that.
Right.
But that's what the plan is right now. I never thought of that. Maybe just rescheduling it for give it a month or two.
For brighter pastures. We'll see. We have no fucking idea how this whole thing's gonna turn out, so it may get even worse.
Hopefully it gets a lot worse. Hopefully it takes us two right here. No, if you are affected or your family's affected by the virus, our hearts go out to you. It's fucking tough for everybody. Someone, Moderna or some shit like that today, announced that they had a 95% success rate with the vaccine. Give me that shit. People are like, I'm going to wait and see if it ain't going to fucking kill nobody. Give me that shit. I'm going out partying that weekend. I don't care. Doesn't matter.
It's the government's way to put chips in us.
It's the deep state. Laura Eisenhower deleted her Facebook.
They just want to track our fucking movements. That's all it's going to do.
They want to put 5G in our asses. Tell you what, I got 5G on my new iPhone. I really like it. I talked about that. What I should go with. And I ended up going with the iPhone.
My man.
Tell you what, the Apple Watch makes the entire thing different. I did not like it the first couple days.
Right.
Got the watch and it changed everything.
I want to get one, but I'm just too cheap.
Yeah, dude, they're expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where. My wife saw me pay for it. We were at Target and I tried to run ahead. She's like, I'm going to go look at something. I said, okay, I'm going to go over here to electronics real quick. And I went over there and I tried to pay for it without her looking. And she walked up and they're like, that'll be $5,000 and she's like, what the fuck are you doing? I'm like, I got it, babe. I got it. I got to be able to tell time. Like, how do you? But, it kind of keeps track of your heart shit. And that's kind of how I sold it to her. And she's like, okay, I don't want you to die, baby. I said, I don't want to die for you either, baby. Abraham Lincoln. How much interesting stuff do you think we can squeeze out of old Honest Abe?
Probably a lot, I would think.
I learned a lot of stuff about this dude, man.
Yeah.
I learned something really provocative right at the end, that the history pundits think he might have been gay.
Okay.
Right at the end.
Okay. Oh, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's gay, you say?
Yeah. He was gay. Gay for pay. He did gay blowies and stuff.
I won't knock him for that.
He became the 16th president of the United States in March of 1861.
I remember that like it was yesterday.
Yeah. When I was going through all my different research, I started going to all these different places. And I started reading about the Robert E. Lee and Ulysses S. Grant, all these different cool spots. And I don't know why I have it written down right here, but it says death of Robert E. Lee.
Okay.
Hold on a second. I got to figure out why I wrote that down. I know it's important. Okay. Figured it out. I'm going to be just throwing weird, interesting things out there all night long. When Robert E. Lee died, and he was the general of the Confederate Army.
Mm-hmm.
Piece of shit. I don't personally know the guy, but I know he wasn't fighting for a good cause. But where he died at in Lexington, Virginia, there was so much flooding from the rain going on that after he died, the people that were supposed to take care of his body were like, listen, we know he died, but we don't have anywhere to put his body, because the funeral home got flooded and it washed away all of the caskets, so they didn't have anywhere to put his fucking body.
Damn.
Until some local neighborhood kids found out that he died, and they swam down in these floodwaters and got the best looking casket that they could find floating in the water. Fucking rowed it back to where he died like a canoe.
They got all these fucking options. There's just caskets everywhere.
And the one they brought back, they're like, all right, nice casket, boys. We're going to put him to rest. And it was way too fucking short for him.
Of course, yeah.
That's what happens. You put kids in charge of anything, they're going to fuck it up. So some people believe they had to chop off some of his legs to do it. But the official word was they buried him without shoes. Now, if a casket is long enough...
Is he wearing those Spice Girl shoes? Fucking platforms?
Yeah. But they said, we buried him without shoes. But they definitely fucking lobbed him off at the knees for sure.
Definitely.
There's no difference between shoes and no shoes.
Yeah, mid-shin.
Yeah, bend his knees a little bit. He's not going to mind at all.
Right.
It's just one of the...
His last thing is we don't have to worry about his comfort.
Yeah, that's what I've never had to go through the process of securing a casket or doing the services for someone, but I've had loved ones that have done it, and they're like, "Yeah, we got him a waterproof." Why the fuck?
Right.
We paid $3,000 extra for the waterproof casket.
I'm sorry, but water's eventually gonna get in there.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever peace of mind you want to get. I mean, they're gonna die and rot away regardless of if you spend the extra $10,000 on waterproofing and anti-worm proofing it and shit.
Bury me upside down so the whole world kiss my ass. Right?
Yeah.
I think, no, seriously, I want to be cremated.
I do too.
Don't fucking grieve over me. Just forget that I ever existed and move on with it.
Smoke my ashes.
Yeah. I saw a guy getting a face tattoo with Charles Manson's ashes this week. That looked pretty fucking hardcore.
Huh. Okay.
That was definitely pretty metal for sure.
Okay. Yeah, good for him.
Much like today, that 1860, 1861.
Yeah.
This was an election held at a time the U.S. was on the brink of chaos due to controversial views and opinions that were going on in the country.
Man.
And I will hang my hat on the fact that last week, our last episode, we didn't say a fucking word about the election or who won or who lost. Ooh. How cool is that for us?
Because you know why? It doesn't make a fucking difference for us.
Doesn't matter. I don't care.
Some people are going to get so... What do you mean it doesn't matter?
Oh, you don't even care about your kids. Fucking, I do, but just not enough to care about who was elected president.
No, it's all good.
Sorry. Now, the reason Abraham Lincoln was a stand-up guy when it came to slavery, he was not about that life, and he did not want the United States of America to be about that life. He was one of the first
what a man.
Political, I guess, politicians to come forward and say, this shit is fucking wrong.
Yeah, this is fuckery.
A lot of politicians would say, it's let them do what they want to do in their parts of the United States, but overall we can deal with it. No, he ran his entire campaign on the premise that slavery did not make every man created equally, like he said, like the founders of the Constitution said. Abraham Lincoln was quoted as saying, "I cannot but hate it. I hate it because of the monstrous injustice of slavery itself. I hate it because it deprives our Republican example of its just influence in the world. A house divided against itself cannot stand. I believe this government cannot endure permanently half slave and half free. I do not expect the Union to be dissolved. I do not expect the house to fall, but I do expect it will cease to be divided. It will become all one thing or another, or all the other." That was the House Divided speech that was, that you learned about in history class in the 5th grade. He really just took a proud, strong stance against slavery, which I commend him for that, obviously.
Absolutely.
He was the first Republican president, and his victory was entirely due to support in the North and the West. He had, there were no ballots cast for him in 10 of the southern slave states.
So you're telling me that the West actually voted red back then?
Yeah, they did.
Wow.
And he won only 2 of the 996 counties in the southern states.
Wow.
Lincoln received, what do you look at?
You can't take my fucking slaves.
He ain't taking my goddamn freedom. I take it.
And glad to know the South was still the South, even in 1865.
And we've come 150 years, and we've certainly made progress in racial equality, but have we made it to the
South?
Yeah,
the gene pool's a little shallowed.
Yeah, right. They're like, "Hey man, I was getting ready to tell you how good how good and nice I liked your black skin, but then I got to fucking my sister real good, and we was drinking some Mountain Dew together, and I just can't bring myself to say it, man. I think." And the fact that we're still, in this fucking year, fighting over the Confederate flag and all these Confederate monuments, I cannot, it doesn't make sense to me, man. History is history.
Right.
You can't change history. You can be proud of your heritage. You can be proud of where you came from. But if my fucking dad was Hitler, I wouldn't be like, "Fuck yeah, my dad."
Right.
"Fuck yeah." I'd be like, "Thanks for making me, Dad, but you were a fucking asshole.
You fucking suck.
You're a piece of shit,
right.
Man."
Yeah.
So the fact that we're still arguing about flying the Confederate flag and all these different arguments, that these stale arguments that we're still facing in the year 2020. You're right. The fucking South is still a little bit fucked up. But then we have met a lot of good people from the South. For us to say that the entire South is... And
it's just a blanket statement. It's one of those things.
And it's not fair. Much like... And some people think Ohio is the South for different parts of the world in the United States. They think you and I are a couple fucking hillbillies. We're not very well educated, but we're not hillbillies.
Yeah, we're just a step up from it.
We're pretty close. Yeah, we're like in
between.
We're
hillbillies with our teeth.
Yes. We're a very gray, very, very, very gray area. So, like for me, when I wipe my butt, I get the poop all the way up the small of my back.
Sure.
But then there's like a spot on my underwear between the small of my back and the band on the underwear where I don't get any poop because the poop doesn't go that high up.
Right.
That's where you and I are, Rob. We're right there between the poop and the band.
We're right above your shit stains.
Right above the shit stains.
Okay.
Lincoln received 1.8 million votes during that election.
Man.
Or he only had 39.8 of the total votes in a four-way race. We need to get back to that.
Four-way race.
We need to get back
Holy
to that.
shit.
We need to get back to that for sure.
Wow.
These two-party races, I don't like that very much.
Yeah.
On December 20th of 1860, South Carolina took the lead by adopting an ordinance of secession. By February 1st, 1861, Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, and Texas all followed suit by seceding from the Union. They said, we're going to start our own goddamn country. Even though we're still attached to this fucking country, we're going to start our own goddamn country. We can drink as much mountain lightning as we want. We can hold our sisters down. Don't matter, not our sisters no more. In this country, there ain't no sisters. Only fucking vaginas. We don't.
Texas terrifies me.
It's two ways. I hear it's really, really, really cool, but then there's parts of Texas where you got to watch out, dude.
Yeah, it's so big, and then there's so many people on death row there. It's like every other fucking person's a murderer.
Oh man, a lot of people are heading there from, our pal of the show, Joe Rogan. He just went there, and a lot of celebrities are making their way to Texas.
I mean, there's enough fucking room out there.
There's plenty of room. You can go out there and just lay in the cornfields and beat off all you want. You can do that here in Ohio, but you get arrested for it.
Yeah, there's a lot of cornfields up here.
Texas row, they put you on death row.
Exactly.
How many people are on death row in Texas for beating off in cornfields?
Beating off in cornfields? I don't know.
There's got to be a few.
At least 10.
At least 10. 6 of these states declared themselves to be a sovereign nation, the Confederate States of America, and they adopted a constitution. It was, like I said, they used crayon, and they used the back of a monster truck magazine. Oh, God. So the Civil War officially started on April 1st of 1861. That was when Fort Sumter was fired upon by the southern states, and and I'll get to it here in a second, but Lincoln was constantly, Abraham Lincoln, a lot of people don't know that his life was constantly under duress, and he was constantly under there was always someone that wanted to cause harm to him, that wanted to hurt him or kill him or have him fucking taken care of, and he just kind of went through the motions, man. Just
rolled through the punches.
He just kind of dealt with it. But,
yeah, I mean, you could expect someone with such, I don't want to say radical views, but such
oh no, they were radical views back then.
I guess so.
They were back then. They were. He was.
Yeah, I mean, he's literally trying to, take white people's slaves from them. I mean, that's
right.
You'd expect anybody trying to make that much of a change to a country that you're going to have heat on you.
As a plantation owner, you have.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
you have slaves. They literally for one lump sum, I buy a car and then I drive the fucking thing back and forth to work.
Right.
There's no you pay for it, then you're done. Mm-hmm. So these guys they paid for a slave. They bought the person to perform all the work on their plantation, so they didn't have to do it. And then all of a sudden, they're like, we're taking these away from you, whether you like it or not.
Right.
Much like if someone come to me and they're like, from now on, I'm going to take, that's my fucking car. I'm taking that car. I'm like, you can't take my fucking car. But what these fucking hillbillies failed to realize, these are humans that have deserved the same rights as anybody else, and they weren't given those rights. And it was just a skewed perspective and a wrong perspective and a wrong point of view back then. But you could see how all of these people from the South would say, this motherfucker has to go. He needs to die. They're taking away how these guys were accomplishing all of their work essentially for free. All this money they invested into what, and that just goes to show the world has changed a lot since then, but we're still dealing with a lot of the shit that, the racist shit that African Americans faced more so in the 50s and 60s during the civil rights movement, but we are not completely over all.
Oh, no.
By no means.
And I mean, it's
fucking sad, man.
It's very sad, and I would hate to, I hate to say it, but I don't think it's, for a lot of people, I think that's so ingrained in them.
Yeah, that's what we have to break, man.
And then those idiots, have kids and teach their idiotic beliefs to their kids, and they think it's okay. I mean, it'll eventually break, but it's just when.
Did I hope so?
It has to.
Everyone deserves to have the same fair shake at everything, just like, everybody else.
Right.
So the Civil War, like I said, started in April of 1861. En route to his inauguration, Abraham Lincoln, he would stop in many towns and cities and give speeches. And I can't remember what this process was called. It was I don't remember, but he started far east, and then he would take the trains and ride the railway systems, and at every train stop he would stop in these cities and these small towns, and he would get off the train, and he would give a rah-rah speech. I'm happy to be your president. We're gonna fucking kick the South's ass. They weren't in the Civil War whenever he was elected. And they were not in the Civil War whenever he was inaugurated. It took a month or two after he was inaugurated in order for the Civil War to start. But he was doing these speeches, we got to free the slaves, we got to give them equal rights, talking all this, beautiful, wonderful stuff. And a man by the name of Alan Pinkerton was hired by the railroad officials to investigate suspicious activities to protect the president. He wasn't necessarily the president's bodyguard, but he was in charge of making sure the railway was safe and there was no suspicious activity surrounding the railway system.
Okay.
He was convinced that there was a plot to assassinate the president on his trip from, I want to say, Pennsylvania to Maryland.
Yeah. And just like, we were just talking about, I would think that, that's very diligent work because I mean, you would think with anybody in history that has wanted to make humanity better as a whole, they have always had a target on their back.
They have a lot to overcome, man.
Yeah, Lincoln and Lenin, even Martin Luther King Jr., JFK. Like it's,
but look at like in our lifetime, you and I are very opinionated about this stuff, but there was a huge uproar in the world in the United States about Colin Kaepernick taking a knee. They're like, why are you taking a fucking knee, you piece of shit? And he's like, I'm not disrespecting anybody that served. Right. I'm disrespecting the police brutality that's happening in the African American community. Whether that's your opinion or not, and I haven't stated my opinion, so before you say, fucking, I'm not giving you my opinion because my opinion doesn't matter. I've got black friends that I would fucking lay down and die for. I have white friends I would fuck the shit out of. It doesn't matter. I love everybody equally. That's my thing. But then the whole world was like, fuck you. And then flash forward a few months, even the NFL shunned him. And then flash forward a few months, and they're like, after all this George Floyd stuff happens, they're like, oh, man.
Yeah, maybe he was on to something.
Right, and he's no longer, I guess he's seen in more of a positive light, but he was just trying to make a change, I think. And, it's...
He still kind of got that target from the NFL on his back
for
just
sure.
Because he drew all that, what they deem negative publicity to...
And if you were one of the people that think that he was incorrect for taking a knee, or you hate his guts, you're completely entitled to that opinion. But just
But you have to be under the understanding that he is just as well allowed to do that as you are to get on Facebook and talk about your political leanings.
Exactly.
It's the same thing.
Beautiful thing. It's a free country, man.
Exactly.
Do whatever jack off in a cornfield. Do whatever the fuck you want, man. So during this planning phase where he was going to go from Pennsylvania to Maryland was still a Union state at this point. Lincoln's camp was unprepared for them to secede like they did from the Union and join the Confederacy. Well, Maryland did that. They seceded from the Union and they joined the Confederate the Confederate States of America. And at this point, it became necessary for Lincoln to cross Maryland to reach Washington, D.C. So
yeah, you kind of got to go through Maryland to get it.
Yeah. And they were Pinkerton clashed with Lincoln's actual bodyguard, a gentleman by the name of Ward Hill Layman, over the president's protection. Layman said there was nothing to worry about, that he had provided the president with a revolver and a Bowie knife.
That's all you need back in those days, a fucking Bowie knife.
Dude, anywhere the president goes now, you're talking hundreds of Secret Service.
Strapping the president up with a Bowie knife.
Hundreds of Secret Service agents. Back during the 1860s, he's like, no, sir, I've been tasked with making sure you stay safe on the campaign trail. What I have right here is a revolver. You pull the trigger, a bullet comes out, you kill the person standing in front of you. If that fails, I've got a big old Bowie knife for you right here.
I mean, he did hunt vampires, so I mean, it's...
Oh, yeah, for sure. He's walking around like fucking Tiger King. He's ready to kill anything that jumps up on him and tries to butt fuck him.
Exactly.
I can't believe that. They just said, here, take a Bowie knife and take a revolver.
That's awesome.
And that was the president's bodyguard that was in charge of that. But this Alan Pinkerton guy said, this is not enough to keep our president safe. On the evening of February 22nd, Pinkerton saw to it that the telegraph lines to Baltimore were cut. This was an attempt to stop communications from passing between conspirators in Pennsylvania and Maryland. And this wasn't like now. You know, back then they couldn't just hop on Twitter and type in dick balls and see what everyone's commenting about dick balls. You had to do some serious legwork and investigating it to even sniff. It would be so easy to keep something like this a secret, man. Mm-hmm. If you were planning something to fuck the president up, it would be so easy to just keep it a secret that no one would find out. Yeah. But this guy, this Alan Pinkerton guy, he had connections because he found out that there was a plot to assassinate the president during this rail trip.
Yeah, I think even back then in these times, they still had to. Their only ways of communicating was to have, you know, the two cans on the end of a string. They still had to use those. There's string everywhere.
I don't even think they had fucking cans yet, dude. That's great.
Cans weren't even invented.
The plan was for Lincoln to pass through Baltimore on a special train in the middle of the night. And what the special train was, I don't know. But it did make things a little bit tricky because there was a city ordinance in Baltimore that prohibited nighttime rail travel through the downtown area. So they weren't even allowed to operate this train through the downtown area of Baltimore in the middle of the night. And they had some bumps in the road doing that. So someone had the bright idea to hook these fucking rail cars up to horses. And they pulled the horses through Baltimore in the middle of the night with the president dressed up in a disguise. But a lot of people that were there for the situation said he slept through the whole entire fucking thing. They make it this big dramatic, like the president snuck through town in the middle of the night because he's a fucking coward. All of the newspapers got wind of this, that he came through Baltimore in the middle of the night and he snuck through in the dark and didn't make any noises or whatever. And
what do they expect him to go? I am Abraham Lincoln.
Look at me, horse.
Wake up.
I'm on a horse-drawn train. We have taken technology backwards. And they made like cartoons and characters about how he was such a fucking coward that he had to sneak through town in the middle of the night.
God, I want to see an 1800s cartoon of Abraham Lincoln.
There was. I'll show you to them.
Okay,
they still have him.
That's awesome.
And luckily they did do what they did because there was reported a plot to stab the president. So the plan was to have several assassins armed with knives sprinkled all throughout the crowd that would gather to greet Lincoln at the President Street station. When Lincoln emerged from the rail car, which he had to do to change trains, one of the assassins would stab the president, inevitably killing him. Once Lincoln had successfully passed through Baltimore in the middle of the night, Pinkerton sent a one-line telegram to the president of the Philadelphia, Wilmington, and Baltimore railroads saying, quote, plums delivered nuts safely.
What?
I don't know what the fuck that means.
Oh, there's something so weird about thinking about an assassination attempt via stabbing.
Yeah.
Like, that's so weird.
But they knew they were going to get that shit done, man.
Yeah.
And the fact that they said, plums delivered nuts safely, that's so stupid right now for us.
Yeah.
But that meant something so proud and bold at that given time.
It's wild.
I don't know what was the president the plum, or was he the plum and the president was the nuts? I don't know. But that just makes me feel very Christmassy, hearing about plums and nuts together. And I want to eat the nuts and the plums all together. Now, the next afternoon, a large crowd gathered, and they were very sad and let down when the president did not make his appearance because he shuffled through in the middle of the night. Although the train that did come through the next afternoon had his wife and his family on it. And they're like, oh, hello, we're the Lincolns. And everyone's like, where's the fucking president?
Yeah,
He'd already sailed through in the middle of the night in a disguise while he's sleeping.
It's like, how do you disguise a fucking 7'13" man?
Why do I gotta wear this fake mustache?
Yeah, that was just all. It was a full beard.
Yeah.
He didn't just have the chin strap.
Everyone knows I don't like any hair on my lip.
They painted his mole, just make it not look like so much of a mole.
So before he was even president, his life was in serious jeopardy. He nearly got fucking stabbed out on his way to the White House. Lincoln would make it safely to the office of the presidency, but a month after taking office, on April 12th of 1861, the goddamn Civil War started. So just a month after he took office, the Civil War started. And they said that whenever, and I don't know, this is kind of his MO or whatever, but when he got to town, Washington, D.C., and he got off the train and walked to the White House, he was in disguise then too. Or maybe, but I think everybody knew who he was, even though he was dressed up in disguise. Maybe he just liked wearing fucking disguises.
Right. I like to think that he's wearing those one disguise glasses that have the mustache on them, you know what I mean? And like the eyebrows up above the glasses.
I don't know, dude. I was so confused by all this.
Just looking like a woolly willy. You remember those things?
Yeah. I just picture he was like on his knees with like shoes, you know, like your kids get on their knees and they put your shoes under their knees and they make it look like they're Bridget the Midget. Shit like that. Oh, poor guy. Historians said that Lincoln made some large mistakes at the beginning of the war and the beginning of his presidency. He underestimated how serious the overall situation was. And he also exaggerated the northern states' point of view towards the slavery issue. So a majority of the people in the northern states, unfortunately, didn't really fucking care what happened to slavery.
Right.
They were much like you and I. We're just like, we don't fucking care what happens. That's kind of they were at that time as well.
We don't do it.
Yeah, they said, we don't care if the southern states keep their slaves or not. It doesn't happen here, so why do we care about it? So, and Lincoln really exaggerated that during his campaign process. So that kind of come back to fucking nip him in the butt a little bit. In fact, it started an entire civil war that killed thousands and thousands and thousands of people. But Lincoln took on a very serious role in the Civil War. He was not fucking around when it came to him being the commander-in-chief of the United States Army. He expanded his war powers immediately, and he imposed a blockade on Confederate ports. He dispersed funds before appropriation by Congress. He suspended habeas corpus, and he arrested and imprisoned thousands of suspected Confederate sympathizers. A lot of people at the time thought that he was a bit of a dictator. They thought that he was doing whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted, and he didn't have to answer to anybody. And, you know, kind of, he took the bull by the horns. Listen, much like it would be today, if we had a civil war, you want to talk about government not fucking mattering, dude. Whoever is kind of running the show is going to take on a different role altogether. It's going to be all bets are off the table. This is what we're doing.
Right.
There's going to be a lot of rules that get skipped. There's going to be a lot of rules that get broken. I hope that we never. I can't even comprehend what it would be like if we had a civil war right now, because we can't just nuke each other, you know, and we have the capability to just crack off nukes and shit. So I oftentimes wonder what an American Civil War would be like right now. I hope we never have to see that in our life, but
yeah, that's kind of terrifying to think about.
It is, man. We got a lot of hillbillies with guns in this country. It'd be Texas versus the entire United States.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
You shoot them and just get stronger. Now, the Emancipation and we're kind of skipping through here. The reason we're doing this is because we want to get to his death and the conspiracy and the lore surrounding his death. He did a good job during the war of providing support to America, and he inevitably got us through the war and got us into a position where the North won the Civil War, and we'll get there.
Suck on that, South.
Civil War champions. The Emancipation Proclamation, issued on September 12th of 1862 and effective January 1st of 1863, affirmed the freedom of slaves in 10 states, not then under Union control, with exemptions specified for area under such control. Lincoln's comments on signing the proclamation was, "I never in my life felt more certain that I was doing right than I do in signing this paper." On April 9th of 1865, Robert E. Lee surrendered to Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse, officially ending the Civil War. Now, at this point, a little bit before this in 1864 is when Lincoln started to run for re-election as president. One thing people don't know is he was completely convinced that he was not going to win a second term.
Okay.
He did not think that he was going to win a second term.
Yeah, I mean, a war happens on your first term. It's kind of...
Right.
Yeah, it's not even like a world war. It's a war over the country in which you're responsible for.
Yeah. In fact, he wrote in a sealed envelope, he said, "This morning, as for some days past, it seems exceedingly probable that this administration will not be reelected. Then it will be my duty to cooperate with the president-elect as to save the Union between the election and the inauguration, as he will have secured his election on such ground that he cannot possibly save it afterward."
Wow.
So he was so convinced that he was not going to win a second term that he wrote it down and said, I'm going to help the fucking next guy because we cannot lose this war. But on November 8th of 1865, he was indeed reelected, as we all know, and he won by a lot on this one. But when you're a wartime president, probably just a fucking fake the ballots. Something like that. I don't know. Most of his energy and time for his next 4 years in office would be spent towards reconstructing the southern states and what was destroyed of the northern states. Unfortunately, he was shot in the fucking head and he didn't make it the next 4 years. But from here, we get to the juicy stuff. The story goes that on April 14th, 1865, just a couple months into his second term, actor and Confederate spy, John Wilkes Booth snuck into the president's private theater box, tiptoed up behind him, and shot the president of the United States in the back of the head, mortally wounding him where he would pass away the next morning. There's a lot of interesting details surrounding that night and surrounding the several days after the assassination of the president. Many people don't know that Ulysses S. Grant, the commanding general of the U.S. Army, was due to be with Abraham Lincoln that fateful night, but flaked at the last moment and went to visit his children.
Good for him.
How? And you say that, but it'd be like you or I, whoever the president is, we get invited to the White House because the Brohio podcast saved the fucking world. We saved the fucking United States from eternal doom.
The world would really have to be up in arms.
No, and we could do it, dude. We could fucking do it. I'd be like, and all the masses, much like when the Statue of Liberty marched through downtown New York and the Ghostbusters were, higher and higher. The whole world would just be like, boom, 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 yes, I do.
The song of our people.
And everyone would be like, Duedo, Duedo, Duedo. And everyone would be Duedo and all over the fucking streets. And then
people shitting in chairs all over the country.
Yeah, pooping in their fucking chairs. Then President Justin Bieber would be like, we want these two fucking guys in the White House for their special medals, and they'd make us medals that were made out of real fucking chocolate chip cookies because we don't know none of that gold shit. Presidential fucking cookies, okay?
I was going to say dildos, but...
presidential dildos. We got them butt
necklace.
plugs. They send us to get us fitted for really nice tuxedos. They get our haircuts. They get us some straight razor shaves, get our faces looking all good. And then the night of before we're supposed to get to the White House, Rob Dog calls the White House on the blue phone. Red phone. He's like, "Hey, Beebs, I don't really feel like coming in there tomorrow.
Got the Rhea.
Well, call Nick, see if he wants to do it." They call Nick. I'm like, "Yeah, dude, I don't want to fucking go either. I just don't feel like doing it." Ulysses S. Grant is supposed to be sitting down in Ford's Theater after the Northern Territory just won the biggest war in the history of the world. He is a hero. And he says, this was a big show. I think it was My American Cousin. I believe that's what it was. This was a big fucking show at the time. And there was going to be a huge crowd that night. Everyone was going to be clamoring to see Ulysses S. Grant and Abraham Lincoln. And he's like, "Nah, fam, I got to go visit my fucking kids. I got child support. I ain't trying to pay that shit. She let it go when I come play with them. When I play with them, she don't make me pay that shit." And he just flakes. Which, for me, Rob Dog, really fucking suspicious.
Red flag.
He flaked on that shit. So I don't know. I don't know. But he was due to be with the president that night, and he didn't show up. There is little doubt and much less to debate about who actually killed the president.
Mm-hmm.
John Wilkes Booth had written speeches about his hatred of the president and his opposition of freeing the slaves. John Wilkes Booth's fame cannot be understated as well. He was very well known, and he was much like a Brad Pitt of his time. There was, they didn't have Instagram. It's even stupid to even say that, but for someone to be as famous as he was...
They're saying I would have wanted to fuck him.
You would definitely would have wanted to fuck him. He was a very handsome fellow.
Brad Pitt can get it.
Yeah. No, John Wilkes Booth would get it too.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, we are back again this week to tell you about our favorite sponsor, Blue Chew.
The reports are coming in, Rob Dog, from our listeners, and the results are rock hard.
Yes, they sure are. Blue Chew is helping guys like you and I to get that extra boost so we can take things to a new level in the bedroom.
Blue Chew, just like the color blue, has the same FDA-approved active ingredients that are used in Cialis and Viagra, all in a chewable blue pill, so you can take the Blue Chew anytime, day, night, hungry, full. It doesn't matter because it's going to get you up and get you going, Rob Dog.
That is right, Nicholas. And even if you aren't having problems down there, Blue Chew can still pump you up like a rocket so you can fly her so high in the sky she'll never come down.
Rob, I took this stuff on family vacation, okay? And my wife knew it. After the family fell asleep, she couldn't keep her hands off of me. I took her on a house-shaking, bed-quaking, panties-aching wild ride. She opened the door to get some water, and there was a line down the hallway. Grandma Sue, Aunt Trudy, Cousin Bertha, they all wanted to hop on the Nickalicious Express.
Guys, if you want a free order of Blue Chew delivered to your front door in a discreet package, hop on over to BlueChew.com and use the promo code BROHIO for your free order. You will not be sorry.
That's BLUECHEW.com. Use the promo code BROHIO, BROHIO. Don't miss this incredible deal.
Yeah.
Blue Chew.
Blue Chew.
For your dick.
The more famous Booth became, the more he became a bit of a Southern chauvinist and a womanizer. At one point,
he was like John Mayer.
He was much like John Mayer. He jilted a woman and an actress so badly that she came back shortly thereafter and brandished a knife and slashed his arm in an attempt to kill him or teach him a lesson. We don't fucking know. But they say that he was a fucking asshole to women, but everybody loved him, man.
You mean a guy that wanted slaves didn't like women either? Wow.
Right. Right. And I just don't, I do not want to understate how famous this guy was. So when he shot the president in the back of the head, this would have been much like today. our president being somewhere, and then Brad Pitt or Matthew McConaughey smoking him in the back of the head and being like, fucking here the fuck I am.
Mm-hmm.
How, dude, we wouldn't even be able to process something like that. If that happened, I'd be like, what the fuck, man?
Right.
I'd be like, that's some badass CGI. His fucking brains went over the place. But if something like that happened today, there would be so much shock in the entire world that the fucking world would stand still, man.
Yeah.
And this is what happened then. The most famous actor in the world, in the United States, shot the president and killed him. And
Like if Keanu Reeves went all John Wick.
yeah, and said, it's over. I'm fucking killing everybody. So, at some point, John Wilkes Booth got his hands on a copy of the Emancipation Proclamation. It enraged him enough that allegedly the wheels started to turn on the plans to fight back against the president. Notice I didn't say to kill the president because his initial plans were to not kill the president. He just wanted to abduct the motherfucker.
Okay.
Booth's original plan was to exchange Lincoln for Confederate prisoners, although General Ulysses S. Grant had stopped all prisoner exchanges to prevent the Confederates from increasing their military. Booth recruited, and what a fucking balls of steel that takes right there for the general to be like, we don't want, we're not doing prisoner exchange. We don't want any of our guys back because we're keeping your fucking guys. God, man.
Yeah, it's some big balls right there.
It's a lot of blood on his hands right there, but you know what? He won the fucking war. Booth recruited 6 men, including George Atzerodt, David Harold, and Lewis Powell, or Payne, to help with his plan of abducting the president. Several plans actually failed before the group gave up. Booth, meantime, continued rising to fame. In his book, Fortune's Fool, The Life of John Wilkes Booth, Terry Alford wrote, Booth could play a wide range of roles. By 1865, he was so acclaimed that he had a myriad of fans, many of them women. Once, as Booth left a theater in Boston after a performance, his followers crowded him to the extent that the manager had to tell them to back up, let him out, and just let him walk to his hotel. In his effort to escape the crowd, according to Alford, Booth became the first known actor to have his clothes torn by fans.
Oh, wow.
That's how how famous this guy was, man. And here you go, fucking running around shooting presidents in the head and shit like that. It doesn't fucking matter. Probably had a little wiener, probably had a little dick, puffy nipples. But he had the fame, he had the fortune, he had the desire, and he had the drive to get shit done. He got fucking shit done.
That's one way to look at it.
That's all it fucking takes.
Yeah.
Now, Booth had some familiarity with Ford's Theater as he'd performed there before. Just a few months earlier, and this is really one of the foreboding, this is another just cool nugget that I learned here. Just a few months earlier, he performed there where, ironically, Abraham Lincoln was in attendance to watch John Wilkes Booth performance. Lincoln's sister-in-law noticed that Booth continuously glared at Lincoln during the performance and pointed at him during the show. She said, Mr. Lincoln, he looks as if he meant that for you. And she whispered that to the president, and the president replied, he does look pretty sharp at me, doesn't he? Abraham Lincoln noticed a few months before he even died, like, God damn, this guy's got a fucking boner for me. Like, something's got a screw loose. So he'd been watching him for a long time. The tipping point for Booth was a speech that Lincoln gave about giving the right to vote to a certain number of African Americans.
Oh, man, he went crazy.
Yeah, not all of them, just some of them.
It's one thing to free them. It's another thing.
We're not going to let them vote.
You can't give them now white people, right?
Yeah, and a word I kept reading was suffrage, and suffrage means you're allowed to vote. And some people hear the word suffrage and they think it means someone that's in suffering. And I remember a skit on the Man Show, Jimmy Kimmel and Adam Carolla.
Yeah.
And they had they were out on Venice Beach on a boardwalk somewhere, and they had a booth set up that said "Stop Women's Suffrage," which means stop women from voting. And all these women and men were stopping to sign this petition, because they thought it meant stop
women suffering.
Yeah. So I just got to put that out there that suffrage means the capability, the ability to vote. When the night of the assassination, Booth visited the theater before the show.
Okay.
And he fixed the door to the president's box. And I don't know what he did to the box, the door to the box, that would allow him. In the research, it said he fixed the door to where it could be jammed shut from the inside.
Okay.
So I think what is meant here is he set the door up to where once he got in there, he could shut the door and whoever was outside the door couldn't come in. And I think that's how he rigged the door up. And I did not know that he went and did that early, about 6:00. He went to the theater and everyone's like, "Oh, John's here." Like they were like, "Oh, he's here."
Yeah, because that kind of sounds like plans that he knew he was never going to get out of that box.
Yeah. Well,
or he wasn't planning on how he was going to get out.
I think he just didn't want anybody to be able to come in because he was preparing for war, man.
I guess, yeah, because I guess if you knew how you did it, then you'd know how to undo it.
Yeah, and he was at this theater so much that he got mail there.
Okay.
And he just showed up to the theater like, I'm here to get my mail. And they said, all right, well, here's your fucking mail. And he went up there and he rigged the door so that he could jam it shut. Naturally, Booth's nerves were off the chart at that point, and he needed something to help him with this. So he lit up a big old fucking water bong. And, he went to a local saloon for some drinks. Water bongs look like so much fun, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Man, I love drinking the water, though.
I think it would kill me if I ever smoked one of those.
Yeah, my body would definitely not be able to handle that for sure.
I need to take a couple days off work.
Too fat. Yeah. So he went to a local saloon there in town for some drinks before returning to murder the president.
Got to ease that nerve.
He waited till about 10:00. I think it was around 10:00, and he came back and he got what he was trying to get. When Booth returned to the theater that night, the show was in full swing. He produced a card to one of the president's aides to gain entry to the theater and get closer to the president. Perfectly timed. And this is another thing in the story that I'm just like, man, that is just too much of a coincidence. The exact time that Booth went up to the booth to shoot the president, Lincoln's bodyguard had stepped away to get a beer.
Oh, man, fire that guy.
Nothing happened to the guy. He wasn't reprimanded. He wasn't put on trial. Nothing happened to him. He didn't get, and it really makes you think there's a bigger conspiracy here than just a fucking pissed off actor killing the president. Booth waltzed right into the president's box where the president was seated with his wife and Major Henry Rathburn and his fiancée Clara Harris as they sat watching the play. He shouted freedom. It's varying accounts whether he shot freedom or revenge for the South, and he shot the president in the back of the head, mortally wounding him. Booth and Rathbone tangled. They started a fight, so Rathbone stood up and rushed towards Booth to attempt to subdue him, but Booth jumped off the balcony, and when he jumped, his spur got caught somewhere, and he fucking tumbled to the ground like a dickhead.
He was fucking wearing spurs?
Yeah, dude.
Holy shit.
This is 1865.
I guess it's true.
And there was a horse waiting out back for him. He's wearing fucking spurs.
He doesn't have a getaway car. He's a getaway horse.
Damn it! Spurs got stuck and fucking flipped him.
Can you imagine if he was just like dangling from his spur? Like his spur. It was just swinging from the box.
People thought it was all part of the show.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone was watching like, oh, it's fucking John Wilkes Booth. It's like when Edge came into the Royal Rumble this year. Everyone's like, big fucking time right now.
Right.
It's Edge. They're like, it's John Wilkes Booth. We didn't know he was coming. We didn't pay for this shit. We're so happy he's here. He just blew the fucking president's brains out all over the upstairs. But he broke his fucking leg when he fell to the ground, though, and he came down I think he broke his right below the knee, right above the ankle. On his left leg, he broke his fibia or tibula, whatever the hell. I don't know what it is.
Fibia or tibia, I don't know which one.
Yep. But then after he landed, he just ran out of the goddamn theater. Everyone's like, oh, see you, John. Everyone, they're just like, it's the biggest celebrity in the world.
Like, wow, that was fun.
Yeah. Oh, he did a real good job making it look like he killed the president. Lincoln's up there bleeding out of his nose. God, dude. Now, there's a lot of conspiracy theories surrounding the actual death of the president. There's they call this the simple conspiracy, and I got this from Thought Catalog. The simple conspiracy, in its most basic form, states that Booth and a small group of friends at first planned to kidnap the president. This eventually resulted in the assassination. In fact, the conspirators, and another thing people don't know about this night, much like the 9/11 shit, when all this stuff was supposed to happen all at once, those people that he conspired with to abduct the president, he got those guys to agree to another plan, and the plan was to kill the president and Ulysses S. Grant in the booth, while simultaneously one of them was going to kill Vice President Andrew Johnson in his hotel room, And there was also a third person that was going to, I believe it was, a third person the exact same time that was in charge of killing Seward, the Secretary of State. And they were going to kill all these guys all at the same time, practically blowing the
whole
head
administration,
off.
yeah.
All of them.
Cut the head off the snake.
Now, the guy that was in charge of killing the vice president checked into his hotel room under his own fucking name, like they told him not to.
Fucking idiot.
And he got slobbered wasted at the bar.
Idiot.
Drunk, and he never attempted. They said he was too nervous, too scared to kill the vice president.
Yeah.
Never did it. But then a lot of people believe the vice president, Andrew Johnson, was in charge of orchestrating this assassination against Abraham Lincoln.
Okay.
So he never got gotten. But then the third guy that was at Secretary of State Seward's house, Seward was upstairs and he was feeling kind of ill. But the third guy, I can't remember his name.
Isn't it funny how in all the presidential assassinations, it's always believed that the vice president had something to do with it?
Yeah.
LBJ.
Yeah, man. It's all about that power, man.
Yeah.
It's a power struggle.
Fuck, just wait your 4 years, bitch, then you can run.
Wait for Joe Biden. When it's your turn, you might not know what the fuck is going on, but at least it'll be your turn. So, Seward was upstairs at his house, sick. And this third guy that was part of the assassination, he arrives and says he was a courier and he had some medicine for Seward. And they're like, hold the fucking phone for a second. And they kind of like watch this guy come into the house, and he bum rushes to go upstairs to get to Seward, the Secretary of State. And they start fighting with him, but he makes it to Seward with the knife, and he slashes him a few times, but he didn't kill him. He did fuck him up pretty good. And then right before John Wilkes Booth jumped from the balcony, he slashed Rathburn as well. He fucked his arm up pretty good. He cut him from his elbow all the way up to his shoulder with
Oh,
a knife.
shit. That's a good cut.
A lot of stabbing going on, man.
A lot of slicing and dicing.
A lot of pork stabbing going on in this basement, too, after this shit's all...
Cutting fillets out of grown men.
Now, there was... that was the simple conspiracy, that this stuff all was much what I believe about 9/11. You're different. That the way it's been portrayed by the media is exactly what happened. Some fucking there was more conspirators than this, but these three guys got really pissed off, and they decided they're going to try and kill all these guys all at once, and that's what happened. Then there's the grand conspiracy theory. Even though personal secretaries of Lincoln presented the simple conspiracy as the most likely scenario, they acknowledged that Booth and his co-conspirators had suspicious contacts with Confederate leaders. So the belief was that the Confederate heads, Jefferson Davis, some of the other heads of the Confederate States of America, had nothing to do with the assassination of President Lincoln. That these actors, and that's exactly what they were, actors. John Wilkes Booth was an actor.
Right.
That they acted out of their own isolated rage, that it didn't come from any other place, that they were the ones that did it, and they didn't get help from anyone else.
Okay.
But in the grand conspiracy theory, it focuses on these connections between Booth and the Confederate leaders in the South. Many variations exist of this theory. For example, it has been said that Booth had contact with Confederate leaders in Canada. It's worth noting that in April 1865, President Andrew Johnson issued a proclamation offering a reward for the arrest of Jefferson Davis in connection with the Lincoln assassination. And Jefferson Davis was the president of the Confederate States of America. He was arrested because of the evidence by an individual named Conover, who was later found to have given false testimony. The Republican Party also allowed the idea of the grand conspiracy to fall by the wayside because Lincoln had to be a martyr, and they did not want his reputation sullied with the idea that anyone would want him killed but a madman. That's pretty fucking weird there, too. And there's the Eisenschmill's grand conspiracy theory. This conspiracy theory was a fresh look at the Lincoln assassination as investigated by Otto Eisenschimmel and reported in his book, Why Was Lincoln Murdered? It implicated the divisive figure Secretary of War Edwin Stanton. Eisenschimmel purported that the traditional explanation of Lincoln's assassination was unsatisfactory. This shaky theory is based on the supposition that General Grant would not have changed his plans to accompany the president to the theater on April 14th without an order.
Okay.
And we talked about that a little earlier, Rob.
That does make a little bit of sense.
For a military man like that, this sold out to America. Mm-hmm. He's the fucking goddamn general. He would have to have special orders to not go to that engagement. He couldn't just be like, fam, I'm not going.
Right,
He would have to be granted permission or given orders by someone with more authority than him, and he's the general of the United States Army at a time that honestly, he's probably like 4th or 5th in command in the entire United States. Eisenschimel reasoned that Stanton must have involved in Grant's decision because he's the only person other than Lincoln from whom Grant would have taken orders. Eisenschimel goes on to offer ulterior motives for many of the actions Stanton took immediately after the assassination. He supposedly left one escape route out of Washington, the one Booth just happened to take, so they kind of left town on the exact same route, Stanton and John Wilkes Booth. The Presidential Guard, John F. Parker, like you said, what the fuck was he doing?
Yeah.
Was never punished for leaving his post. Eisenschimel also states that the conspirators were hooded, killed, and or shipped off to a remote prison so they could never implicate each other. However, this is exactly the point where Eisenschimel's theory collapses. When these guys were subjected to trial, I don't think that they were hooded, and it was kind of, he made it seem like there was a big secret about these other guys that attempted to kill Seward and then attempted to kill the vice president. I think they were ultimately, they were pardoned, I do believe, by President Andrew Johnson after he took over as president. He wasn't the vice president anymore. He took over for Lincoln, and eventually these guys that were, I guess, working for the Confederate States, they were pardoned by President Johnson, which makes you think, why the fuck would he pardon these guys?
Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunately, President Lincoln never regained consciousness, and he died at 7:22 a.m. on the morning of April 15th, which was the next morning. Early in the morning of April 26th, federal authorities caught up with 2 fugitives at Garrett's farm near Port Royal, Virginia. Harold was the one that bum rushed the Seward house.
Okay.
And slashed the Secretary of State. He was the one that did that act, I believe. He was with John Wilkes Booth when they all kind of left town. Mm-hmm. And they were hiding someplace in Port Royal, Virginia. They took cover in a barn. It was a tobacco barn of some type. And they refused to come out. The barn was lit on fire, torched, and Sergeant Boston Corbett shot John Wilkes Booth as the flames surrounded him. But Harold came out.
This is another thing that always interests me, that these fuckers always get killed before they tell their story.
You're about to fucking find out, dude.
They always get killed.
They do. And much like Lee Harvey Oswald, who probably would have had a lot to say, given the opportunity.
Yeah.
This guy was killed, or was he? Because there's a lot of people that believe that these 2 guys in this barn here were not who they thought they were. And it gets pretty crazy here in a second.
Let's go.
So Harold surrenders. They light the barn on fire. He says, "I'm getting the fuck out of here." He comes out. He surrenders, but John Wilkes Booth stays inside. Sergeant Boston Corbett, who was in the Union Army during the Army, and he was a God-fearing Christian, do it all for fucking God, don't show me a pussy because I don't want to see what it looks like. He was all about freedom, God, and doing what's right for his country. He said that he was looking through the cracks of that barn, and it was on fire, and John Wilkes Booth had a gun in there with him, and he lifted that motherfucker, and he said, at that moment, I knew that he was going to fight his way out. So he shot his gun, and he mortally wounded John Wilkes Booth. So then I started reading about this Sergeant Boston Corbett guy a little bit.
Okay.
And I said, he's a God-fearing fucking Christian, Bible-thumping. Dude, he enlisted in this fucking army like 50,000 times. He was all about serving his country in this Civil War. one crazy thing about him is he started going, I want to say this is after the war. I do believe he was going town to town doing like street profiting and preaching on corners,
handing out pamphlets and shit like that.
The end is coming and shit like that.
Right.
And he was at some type of religious gathering when two prostitutes approached him. And they're like, yeah, you the fucking warrior.
You want a little sucky?
You want to get your fucking balls tucked on? Because
wonder how much a prostitute cost back then.
4 shillings. I don't know.
2 hay pennies.
3 sand dollars.
Sand dollars.
So these women, these nasty fucking slut bags they're like, well, you want to take a ride with us? And I'd have been like, no, because I know they had big old bushes and their pussy stunk back then. So I'd have been like, emphatically, no, bitch. I will wait my turn till I find my forever lady. But Sergeant Boston Corbet, he noticed that whenever these women were coming on to him, these prostitutes, he got a fucking boner, and he liked it. And this is not something that he was used to because he didn't dabble with women. And I'm not making, usually when I start to tell stories like this, you're just like, this motherfucker is making this shit up. But I am not making this shit up at all. This is a completely true story. These women, they're trying to get him to fucking rail them out. And he was having no part of it because he was a God-fearing Christian man that didn't want no pussy. And he didn't want no dick. He wasn't gay. Don't catch him with that gay shit. So he started to get a fucking boner. And he was so upset with himself over getting this fucking boner from these chicks fucking with him that he went home and took a pair of scissors and cut his fucking balls open, pulled his testicles out of his scrotum, and cut his fucking testicles off.
You are full of shit.
I swear to God, Rob.
He castrated himself.
He castrated himself with a pair of scissors at his own house. And then still went to Bible study that night. Like, why are you whimpering? I just cut my fucking balls off.
Holy shit.
I'm not making this shit up. The guy that fucking shot John Wilkes Booth didn't have any fucking balls. It might have been, I don't know when he did it.
Dude, I'm sorry, but that's a guy I do not want to fuck with.
Yeah.
If you're so scared of a boner that you cut your own balls out.
Yeah, dude, it's,
wow.
Isn't that crazy, though? This is the insane story who killed. This is from the Washingtonian. Let me see if I can, because this is a hard one to swallow, because this is pretty fucking weird. The ministers eventually encouraged him to stake out a corner of his own, not so much because the young man had potential, and I'm reading directly from the webpage right here. So, when he was 26, he started bearing witness of Jesus, whatever. He would swear off liquor and grow his beard and hair long, styling himself in the image of Jesus. He also surrendered himself to a baptism by a Methodist minister, and he was born again as a Boston in recognition of the town that saved him from the drink. His rash tendencies exhibited themselves in strange ways. One day, while he was ministering in the summer of 1858, so he was already ballless when he killed John Wilkes Booth.
Ballless.
Corbet was oogled by a pair of prostitutes, and the lower half of his body responded invitingly. He went home, took a pair of scissors, snipped an incision under his scrotum, and removed his testicles, then headed out to a prayer meeting.
Holy shit.
He said, I don't want these fucking balls. You can have these balls, Jesus.
Damn, dude.
It brings new meaning to taking my ball and going home.
That's gangster.
No, it's not, dude.
I
got no respect for that guy.
Holy shit.
Dude, my balls feel good when you touch on them. Like when I'm doing nasty stuff with my wife, it feels good when my balls are touched.
This dude not only cut his sack open, then he spilled the goodies that's inside of his sack.
Yeah, man.
And then just sewed it up and went to fucking Bible study.
I gotta get the fuck out of here. I got a prayer meeting.
It gives a whole new term to busting a nut.
Dude, if I bet you I know exactly how that prayer meeting went. He'd be like, dear Jesus, I regret cutting my balls off.
Right.
Jesus, can you give me my balls back?
Oh, shit.
They're probably just laying in a field somewhere still to this day.
Dude.
Looking for their dad.
Man.
Have you seen our dad? We're trying to stick together, but Jesus Christ.
Bet he grew a fabulous set of titties after that. Is that how that works?
I don't. Well, he was already ballless when he killed John Wilkes Booth. He's probably like, come out with your hands up. Come out with your hands up so we can see him. So, yeah, how humiliating for John Wilkes Booth to allegedly get killed by a man with no testicles.
You would think this guy would have huge testicles, but no.
No, dude. He's a grizzled fucking war veteran that just said, I ain't got no time for boners. I'm cutting my balls off.
God damn it.
And they said part of his street act in the corner when he was bearing witness is like when he was done talking about the Bible, he pulls balls out of a jar and starts juggling them.
Drop it and the dog would start gnawing on him.
Oh, they're amazing. Ball juggler. You guys probably aren't going to believe this, but these are my actual real balls. Hours before shooting Lincoln, Booth had mysteriously called on, and this is another, where I think that Andrew Johnson probably had a lot to do with the president dying. Booth had mysteriously called on Andrew Johnson at the Kirkwood house and left a handwritten calling card that read, this is from Booth to the vice president, said, "Don't wish to disturb you. Are you at home? J. Wilkes Booth." The First Lady, as she wrote to a friend, believed that miserable inebriate Johnson had cognizance of my husband's death. And Mary Todd Lincoln was fucking Fruit Loop, dude. That bitch was a goddamn lunatic.
Was she?
Yeah, dude.
She wild?
She was a lunatic.
Okay.
And when they first got together, like they first kind of became boyfriend and girlfriend or whatever.
Lincoln, I don't know anything about her.
Lincoln engaged her, and then he said, "I got to get the fuck out of here," and he broke off the engagement because
really
she was
nuttier than squirrel turds.
Yeah, she was institutionalized by the end of her life. I
hell
believe.
yeah,
yeah, she was a fucking fruitcake. And some acquaintances certainly existed. Atzerodt, who was one of the gentlemen that was part of the assassination attempts, he was the one that failed to attack the vice president. Was even seen by some as proof of Johnson's complicity. But what's crazy, this wasn't at a time where a person's identity someone couldn't be widely, like we say Booth was famous, but he couldn't have been that famous because how many people actually went to the theater on a Saturday night? Right. It's kind of like he was famous for all intents and purposes, but he wasn't famous like today famous.
Yeah.
Much like Flavor Flav, he couldn't walk down the street right now without people knocking him over, trying to get autographs, hang from that clock.
Is Flavor Flav like your Mount Rushmore of fame right now?
Right now. For sure. I want to tug on that clock and tug on that cock, if you know what I'm saying. But yeah, it was 150 years ago. There's no TV. There's nothing. Because there was so much mystery surrounding the autopsy and subsequent burial of John Wilkes Booth, some held the belief that Booth didn't really die that night in that barn by the ballless man, Baron Corbin. Boston Corbet. What was it?
King Corbin.
Yeah. I fucking hate Baron Corbin, too. Some claim that Booth had actually escaped and that the man shot in the barn wasn't really Booth. They further believe that when officials in the American government discovered that they had the wrong fucking guy to escape embarrassment, the matter was quickly covered up. They're like, "Yep, we got it, John Wilkes Booth. Close the case." And they think that maybe they got the wrong guy, so the American government's like, "Oh, fuck." So
just stop. Yeah.
They couldn't be like, "Oh, well, he's still out there." Because it's a needle in a haystack at this point, man. Yeah. It's such, if you think, whereas right now, if someone in Dayton needs someone in Colorado, we can call the Denver Police Department and be like, "Hey, we got a guy with a fucking warrant for touching kids. Go get him." And they can do that. Like, they could do the telegrams or the telegraphs back then, but
I just thought they used pigeons.
They could be like, "He has a fucking mustache. He wears a top hat and he's got no balls. I think he might have a penis. I don't know if he cut that off too. He definitely cut the balls off. He had him at the Bible study. They used him as a bookmark." So you couldn't really send a picture, whatever.
No SMS text message.
Yeah. On January 13th, 1903, so we're going ahead about 35 years.
Good hop.
A man in Enid, Oklahoma by the name of David E. George died. In his last dying statement, the man confessed to his landlord, Mrs. Harper.
Mrs. Harper, you gotta love her.
"I'm John Wilkes Booth." He told her, he said that he was in fact John Wilkes Booth. This was soon the topic of discussion around town. The January 22nd, 1903 Enid Wave bore the following article banked with headlines.
Man, and I'm gonna say, timeline-wise, that
it
adds up.
It adds up way more than you think.
That adds
it does.
up.
Hold on, it adds up way more. And the newspaper said, was it Booth? The impression growing from evidence, circumstantial and otherwise, that the supposed remains of David E. George are none other than the remains of John Wilkes Booth.
Okay.
The most remarkable circumstance surrounding the dead man, as links to the fact that his right leg was broken just above the ankle years ago,
which we've talked about.
Besides these lines, comes the fact that John Wilkes Booth was born in 1839 and was 26 years of age when the assassination took place,
So
and
young.
63 years old in 1902. If living, which would be the exact same age of George as it's found in his papers.
Wow.
The exact same age, man.
63 in 1902 terms is like fucking 109 now.
It is. Yeah. You led a good, healthy life.
Yeah.
Ate a lot of fucking salads right there. I cut my balls off.
I was
Didn't need them. They say neutered dogs live longer.
They get fatter too.
Yeah. The remains of David E. George's body were mummified and kept on display at the Undertaker's for many months. Shortly thereafter, Finis L. Bates, a Memphis lawyer, bought the mummy and began presenting it on the circus sideshow circuit.
So fucked up. Imagine if your body was put in a fucking circus sideshow.
I hope they put me up naked. Like, oh, look how small his wiener is, Dad. He definitely doesn't have any balls. I got balls. I'd wake up from my dead slumber. I got balls.
I just want him to do like a weekend at Bernie's with me.
You prop him up.
Yeah. Fucking walk around with me like a human marionette.
You can just take him to the bar and throw him up on the fucking bar top and start doing body shots off of him.
Just pour a beer down his ass crack.
Hey, what are you doing? I bought this fucking thing. I'm going to play with it.
This guy really stinks.
How do you go about buying a dead body?
I don't know, man.
We should go to the coroner's office tomorrow and just be like, knock on the window. Like, we're trying to buy one of those guys inside. Not with them COVID ones. Them others are nasty.
Yeah.
We want one of them really fucking ripe ones. This lawyer, Finis L. Bates, a Memphis lawyer, he buys the fucking mummy and he starts parading around the United States in the sideshow circuit. And such were the beginnings of a second career for John Wilkes Booth. The mummy scattered ill luck around almost as freely as was it Tutankhamun? It was some fucking Egyptian mummy.
Okay.
It caused a lot of bad luck. But nearly every showman who exhibited the mummy, who showed off this...
Is that like King Tut? Is that who that is?
I think it's something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. And everyone that showed this mummy off, it was David E. George's body, David E. George said he was John Wilkes Booth, but everyone that showed this mummy off was subsequently ruined financially. 8 people were killed in the wreck of a circus train in 1902 in which the mummy was traveling. Bill Evans, a wealthy carnival king who bought the exhibit in later years, was financially ruined by continual strokes of bad luck after the purchase of the dead body. Finis L. Bates, the original owner, wrote a book in 1908 entitled The Escape and Suicide of John Wilkes Booth, which attempted to prove that the mummy was in fact John Wilkes Booth. He suffered much ridicule because of that book and died penniless in 1923.
Oh, that sucks.
A lawyer dying penniless. I don't feel bad about it. Perhaps the only person to sponsor the mummy and not suffer strokes of financial bad luck was Reverend True Wilson. It must be pointed out that Wilson was largely responsible for originally getting the prohibition law passed.
Yeah,
fuck him. Yeah.
Fuck him.
You fucking die.
Do you know how good alcohol is?
Go home, cut your fucking balls off. However, shortly after Wilson bought the mummy, the repeal of the prohibition law was made official. In 1931, at the urging of a showman that owned the mummy, the remains were x-rayed, operated on, and otherwise examined by a group of medical men and criminalists in Chicago, Illinois. I don't know how good a criminalist would be in 1931.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering too.
But it was claimed that the fractured leg, the broken thumb, and the scar on the neck were all verified to match up with the marks and scars that were alleged to have been on John Wilkes Booth.
Okay.
The panel was convinced that they had proven that the mummy was in fact the remains of John Wilkes Booth.
Wow.
Despite the fact that the panel consisted of recognized experts in their field, the investigation failed to gain wide publicity. A few pulp magazines and otherwise tabloid newspapers were the only ones to carry the story. This, combined with the fact that a showman brought about the investigation, tended to take credibility away from the conclusions of the otherwise more than qualified panel of experts. Now, wherever and whenever John Wilkes Booth, assassin of Abraham Lincoln, wherever he died, it's pretty much a sure bet that it wasn't in a burning barn in Virginia. Booth had coal black hair and a clear complexion. When he made the leap from the presidential box to the stage of Ford's Theater, he landed on his left foot and broke his left ankle. The man who assisted Booth in mounting behind the theater testified that he couldn't put weight on his left foot. Dr. Samuel Mudd, I think he was actually executed for helping John Wilkes Booth, but he testified that he splinted Booth's left ankle. Testimony from eyewitnesses to the shooting of Booth in the barn described a man with sandy hair and freckles, which is not John Wilkes Booth at all.
Yeah.
His right ankle was broken, not his left ankle. There are a number of other circumstances to indicate the man in Virginia wasn't John Wilkes Booth, but the man that was shot in Virginia was not John Wilkes Booth. But these two alone are sufficient to cast more than reasonable doubt on the identification. 5 years later, after the Lincoln assassination, a young, very handsome, black-haired man with a clear complexion turned up in the tiny town of Glen Rose, Texas. He gave his name as John St. Helen. Although he didn't drink himself, he worked as a bartender. He also acted in amateur theatrical productions in Glen Rose. He had tremendous stage presence, excellent diction and delivery, and was obviously at home on the stage. He also had an almost encyclopedic mastery of the plays of William Shakespeare, who John Wilkes Booth built his entire inspiration of becoming an actor off the works of William Shakespeare. Now, John St. Helen remained in Glen Rose a little less than a year. A local politician's daughter was to be married. Included on the guest list were a number of U.S. Army officers and the United States Marshal for the Eastern District of Texas. John St. Helen got word of the guest list and promptly left town, never to be seen again.
Yeah, all these puzzle pieces are slowly starting to fit together.
He turned up about a year later in Granbury. His closest local friend, a lawyer named Finis L. Bates, noticed something. And you remember, Finis L. Bates is the guy that bought the fucking dead body.
Yeah.
While St. Helen drank not a drop 364 days a year, on one specific day, he drank himself into a stupor. That day was April 14th, the anniversary of the Lincoln assassination.
Okay.
Here are the facts. On the afternoon of April 25th, 1865, Booth remembered. Now, this is the day that he died. He allegedly died. And this is the same day that they caught him in the barn and shot him. On this day, Booth remembered that he had left his diary, his wallet, and other personal effects in the marsh a few miles from the Garrett farm. He asked a man by the name of Rudy, who was the caretaker of the Garrett farm, to retrieve them for him. And if I had left some stuff in the swamp, I would definitely look for someone named Rudy to go get it for
right.
me. Like, hey, Rudy, you want to make a fucking quarter? Yeah, what you want me to? I'll go get it. Rudy left to go get the wallet and the diary and all of John Wilkes Booth's personal belongings. Meanwhile, Booth got wind that government agents were closing in on him, so he took off on his own, leaving Harold behind. When Rudy returned with Booth's personal items, he found that Booth was gone. Expecting him to return, which Rudy, probably not, few fucking fries short of a Happy Meal.
Right.
Expecting John Wilkes Booth, I certainly believe if he caught wind that the federal government was on his tail, he probably didn't leave a calling card or a fucking note that said, hey, Rudy, hang out, buddy. I'll be right fucking back.
Exactly.
He probably just left. So Rudy gets back with the shit, and expecting Wilkes Booth to return, he kept the personal items on his person. So Rudy put this shit in his pockets. Harold and Rudy slept in the barn that night. When the government agents arrived, this is why the man in the barn denied he was Booth, because there were many accounts of people that were surrounding the barn, and the guy, Harold, immediately surrendered. There are a lot of accounts that said the guy inside the barn said, you got the wrong fucking guy. I'm not John Wilkes Booth. I'm not coming out. You got the wrong guy. And if the fucking barn's on fire, he probably there might not have been any way for him to come out.
Yeah.
This is also why Booth's personal belongings were found on the body of the man shot inside the barn. Lastly, Bates made the claim that no reward was ever actually paid to anyone for the capture of Booth, but yet rewards were paid for the capture of Atzerodt and Payne, the other gentleman that helped that night. Therefore, this proved that the government knew they had the wrong man, that Booth was never caught. The families of the brother of John Wilkes Booth, Edwin Booth, were willing to exhume Edwin's body for a DNA sample and compare it to a tissue sample of John Wilkes Booth stored at a government-ran medical facility in Philadelphia. However, the request for a DNA test was subsequently denied by the U.S. Department of Health. As of 2012, no further efforts have been made to bring the matter to a close. And one other cool thing, Edwin Booth, who was John Wilkes Booth, it was his brother, but at a train station somewhere a few years before the actual assassination, I want to say it was Tad or one of Abraham Lincoln's sons was at the train station with Abraham, and he was fucking around on the platform, and he fell down off the platform onto in between the platform wall and the rail car that was speeding forward.
Mm-hmm.
The man that jumped down and saved Lincoln's son from the railroad tracks was Edmund Booth, John Wilkes Booth's brother. So some irony right there.
Small world.
Yeah, that at one point John Wilkes Booth, his brother, saved Abraham Lincoln's son's life, and just a weird coincidence.
Yeah, it's real weird.
It's just if Boston Corbet, if that happened to him, he would have cut his balls off. Oh, no, that man grabbed me and I liked it. I ain't no gay man. I'm not no queer. I'm cutting these balls off. That would be an ultimate display of affection, though, if like you were so in love with another man and he just wasn't having your advances, that you just cut your balls off and gave them to him. That'd be the ultimate display of affection.
It's like a trophy.
I can't give you my love, but I will give you my balls. There's another interesting theory. This is really fucking deep, too. I'm sounding like Alex Jones right here.
Sweet.
I was reading about this one. The Rothschilds.
Okay.
Who own the entire fucking banking system.
They own everything.
They own the entire world and all the money in it.
Right.
There was a belief that Abraham Lincoln was going to need a lot of loans to finance the war, and then he was going to need a lot of loans to finance the rebuilding of the country.
Okay.
And Abraham Lincoln said, he was going to have to borrow the money from the Rothschilds, their banking system.
Mm-hmm.
And the Rothschilds knew that he needed the money, so they made the loans at a very exceptionally high interest rate, so that whenever they paid this shit back, they were going to get fucking paid.
Mm-hmm.
Abraham Lincoln said, "No, fuck this shit. I'm not getting these high interest loans, which you never should partake in the high interest
right.
loan.
Yeah.
These are like payday loans." He said, "No, fuck that shit." So what did he do? He's the president of the United States. He just printed the money he needed, and that pissed them off to no end, to the point that the Rothschilds orchestrated the entire assassination of Abraham Lincoln. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. I read some other snippets online about a Confederate Secret Service. There was a spy organization, and the assassination wasn't necessarily carried out by John Wilkes Booth himself. That there was small cells of Confederate spies that this Confederate Secret Service stationed these guys all over southern Canada. So in November of 1864, the leaders of the Confederate Secret Service was Jacob Thompson and Clement Clay Jr. They were setting up almost like a terrorist attack. All these guys were going to go to New York City and various parts all over the Union states, and they were going to check into hotels, all the guys from this Confederate Secret Service, and they were going to burn these hotels down in the exact same moment and kind of kick off a huge kind of downward spiral of the Union states. But there was a a lot of people don't know there was a Confederate Secret Service, and they kind of carried out strikes against the Union. And one more thing, I think it's really fishy, all the stuff that Andrew Johnson did, the vice president, the people that he pardoned, how the guy that was supposed to kill him never fucking showed up to kill him.
Yeah, that is really fishy.
And he just skated, nothing really happened to him. He literally, Andrew Johnson pardoned the people that created this Confederate Secret Service. So for lack of a better word, it smells like fucking fish to me.
Definitely.
And then I'm reading about, and I thought I heard, this is really stupid and weird, but I thought I'd heard things in my life about Abraham Lincoln's dick, about it being really small.
Okay.
So
sure.
I don't know how anyone would know that.
Yeah.
So then I started Googling about Abraham Lincoln's wiener, and there was like some satire articles about him having a small dick.
Okay.
But then there's some seriously heavy articles about how Abraham Lincoln was believed to have been a homosexual. He had this crazy ass fucking wife that he hated, that he didn't, that he did not love, that he did not care for. He just, at a time when people were having 50, 60 fucking kids, and every single time you had sex, you had a kid. He only had like 4 kids. So, but there was, in this research I'm going through, and I can't read this whole thing because I'll be here all night. He had a friend by the name of Joshua Fry Sneed, and there were, I guess, he was a business partner. They opened a store together, but in 1999, there's a playwright and activist named Larry Kramer that claimed that he had uncovered previously unknown documents while conducting research for his work in progress, The American People of History. Some were allegedly hidden in the floorboards of the old store once shared by Lincoln and Joshua Sneed. The documents reportedly provide explicit details of a relationship between Lincoln and Speed. Was it Speed or Sneed? It's Speed.
Sneed.
It's Speed.
Oh, okay. Is it?
Speed, yeah, it's Speed.
Okay.
But it provides explicit details of a relationship between Lincoln and Speed, and currently reside in a private collection in Davenport, Iowa. Their authenticity, however, have been called into question by such historians as Gabor Borit, who wrote, "Almost certainly this is a hoax," but there was a lot of accounts of Abraham Lincoln, I want to say there was one other man in his life. I don't think it was Speed, but it might have been Speed. It was either a bodyguard or was Speed, but I'm reading here, they shared a fucking bed together. And and everyone that kind of came around said, why are these fucking guys sharing a bed together? It's kind of fucking weird. They're just like, it's Abraham Lincoln, let him do whatever he wants. But he was, and they just made it seem really strange that he was sharing a bed with another man. I mean, it's even as, okay. Says Lincoln met Joshua Speed in Springfield, Illinois in 1837. When Lincoln was a successful attorney and member of Illinois House of Representatives, they lived together for 4 years, during which time they occupied the same bed during the night, and developed a friendship that would last until their deaths. According to the same stories, William Herndon and a fourth man also slept in the same room. So there was, this is a really, really big article. You know what? More fucking power to him for being gay.
Yeah.
But people say that Buttigieg was going to be the first gay president. Abraham Lincoln might have been the first gay president.
For all we know, yeah.
I think it's a beautiful thing. And I think he was probably having sex with men if he had such a fucking shit crazy wife. Katz said the sleeping arrangements did provide an important sight if they could keep others noticing. What's it say here? There was Lincoln-Speed relationship fell within a 19th century category of intense romantic man-to-man friendships with erotic overtones that may have been a world apart in the area's consciousness from the sensual universe of mutual masturbation and the legal universe of sodomy, budgery, and the crime against nature. So they were just jacking each other off.
Hey,
not a
bros
big fucking
helping
deal.
bros.
Not a just doing a brother. I'm not saying that Lincoln was wrong for that. It doesn't, like I said. I think it's love is a beautiful thing. I just think it's something very interesting that I'd never heard about.
No,
that potentially that he was into guys.
I would have never thought about it.
Brad Pitt, if he was here right now, we would be into guys. We would
Sure.
come sleep in my bed tonight, and he'd say, "You want to see my wiener?" And Rob would be like, "I want to suck your wiener," and then I'd be like, "I want to fuck your wiener," and then he'd be like, "All right, I'm taking the fat one because he went straight to where I wanted to go, and he didn't beat around the bush at all. He's not like you, Rob Dog. He doesn't just want to kiss on it. He wants it in him."
Yeah, sure.
So to say that I learned some stuff during this would be a huge understatement. I learned a lot of shit about all this. But what do you think about you think it was just John Wilkes Booth acting by himself? I think there's too much stuff that adds up right there with Andrew Johnson and just
there definitely has to be more, more to it. I would think, and especially with the whole his whole death situation. That's I think the big thing for me. That seems kind of convenient that this guy that died has so many similarities.
I think it's so cool that some guy just on his deathbed says, I'm John Wilkes Booth.
Right.
And then I looked at the pictures. They compared, I think it was whatever George, and then the guy that said he was John Wilkes Booth, and they put a picture of that next to John Wilkes Booth, and they put that next to a picture of John St. Helen, and all these three of these fucking guys look exactly the same.
Okay.
And it's uncanny how close how similar they look. So it's a cool story, man.
It's really cool.
I think that it just I'm just further infatuated with the story and the history behind it. But there's a lot of alternate theories out there. It doesn't stop with what we just talked about right here. So there's a lot of alternate shit out there, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah.
So I think we have the live show Saturday. We're going to eat hot shit and die. We got a lot of stuff going on here at the Brohio Podcast.
It's going to be more than us just dying, but that's going to be the main takeaway.
I'm really happy for this episode. There are a lot of research involved, and I think there was a lot of here lately. It's just been us kind of throwing turds against the ceiling and seeing if it sticks.
Sure.
And this took a lot of time, a lot of hard fucking work. You know how we do. We get on Wikipedia for 8 minutes, and that seals the deal. I think this was a fun one, Rob.
Yeah, I like it.
Really happy for that guy that cut his balls off, though.
Fucking retard.
Ever since I took that nose spray, my nose has been itching like I have some type of cocaine addiction, and I cannot get my nose to stop, so we're going to stop the show.
Sure.
Let's stop the show as soon as you tell them that you love them.